everyone has had a really decent day. This day has been fraught with problems for me, and I would even say my wife, but nevertheless, let's have a patron appreciation. This is an audible. This is like a real-time audible. Mrs. Thomas was sitting here because Mrs. Thomas always does a patron appreciation episodes with me. She was sitting here, gets up, and runs to the bathroom and throws up. In which case, I, being a devoted husband, get up to check on her and make sure she's okay and give her nausea medication to try to help with it. So she's going to lay down. She's not in any shape to do a patron appreciation, at least not one that is going to end up getting a lot of views for the wrong reasons. Her passing out, her head hitting the desk or something. So I'm going to try to do this on my own and try to some degree, have some fun. In the same way that Mrs. Thomas and I have fun with this. There's no way I'm going to match it, but let's do our best. I have my little thing here to try to keep track of people who are commenting, but I don't think this is going to work, so I'm going to have to find something else. But nevertheless, let's do it. Patron appreciation. These episodes are done for the patrons themselves, actually. There are going to be several videos. One or two of these videos are going to be for all purpose, but for the most part, the remainder of the videos are going to be done purely for the patrons. And each week, we do a patron appreciation episode. Patrons, contributors, people with a PayPal, any of those, for the most part, can get access to it. In fact, there's a Facebook page specifically for it. So if you're contributing by some other means, please let us know, and we will give you access to the site. I think that's it. I think that's all the announcements. Here's a kind of a wish that Mrs. Thomas get better. And let's do the news. One of the things that I've been chomping at the bit to get to is Bernie Sanders' Townhall. Now, CNN, I have to be honest, and I found that I'm not the only person complaining about this. Fox News did a better town hall than CNN. In fact, CNN's town hall comes across as being almost spiteful that Bernie Sanders took a Fox News town hall. That's how bad it is. Now, you remember in the very first town hall that Bernie Sanders did, I can't get his name out, CNN stacked the deck. CNN misrepresented the people who were asking the questions to Bernie Sanders. And in this one, the questions that are being asked are most of the questions are just outright hostile. And they're asked by people who look like they're angry at Bernie Sanders for being I shit you not. Chris Cuomo, in many of these questions, comes in and makes it that much worse. And then, whatever Bernie Sanders answers with, CNN writes a headline in the most bombastic, hyperbolic way in order to make it look bad. The fix was in. Fox News gave a far better town hall than CNN. And Bernie Sanders, no, he can't just say, I'm not going to go on CNN. But if there's an opportunity for him not to, it would probably be in his best interest. CNN sucks. And it doesn't seem like they're giving him a fair shake. For example, hey, are you going to allow felons to vote? And this question is asked in a way of, does Bernie Sanders even going to want to allow the Boston bomber to vote? You want to allow rapists and murderers and drug dealers to vote, Bernie Sanders? Are you serious? Cuomo literally comes in and says, are you serious? Now, his reasoning is rational as can be. But framed in that way, whatever he says, he has to dig himself out of a hole in order to even just answer the question of the substance of the questions. Reparations. This is asked by a woman that was black that also just so happened to be angry. But I didn't necessarily want to add those two together. Now, because that comes across as angry black woman, and that's frowned upon. My wife was sitting here with me, and both of us kind of looked at each other like, what the fuck? The way she just seemed so pissed off in the way that she asked the question to Bernie Sanders. She's like, your point of view on this, sir, troubles me. He can't support this. I support you in this thing. I support race-based reparations. You got me. No, he shouldn't push it as a political party. And yes, I can make the argument for both of those things because those things are separate and distinct from one another. It's being aware of your political climate. So, none of the candidates are going to support you on this. So that's not just Bernie Sanders. Regardless of what they say, he's the one that's being honest with you about what he's trying to do. But let's keep going. Financial status. Hey, socialists, how can you be a millionaire and a socialist? How can you lead the revolution if you're going to be a millionaire? And then Cuomo comes in and says, look like you didn't pay many charitable deductions. You don't pay money to charity, Sanders. I mean, that should be, I don't mean to ding you on this, Sanders, but I'm going to ding you on this. This is the shit that they're asking him. Another angry woman. My family fled the Soviet Union. We had nothing. We had potatoes, and we were eating puppies. I ate my puppy. And you're trying to implement socialism in America. Why, Sanders? Why do you want to have us eating puppies in America? I'm just giving you the... When did you want to stop nationalizing markets? You used to want to, you were a socialist, Sanders. You wanted to take over the railways and stuff. When did you stop wanting to do that? These are the questions that they ask Sanders. Yes, this looked a bit biased in the way that Sanders was being approached on this town hall. And if CNN wants an example of a really good town hall, they only have to look at Fox News. Just look at Fox News. But let's look at some of the questions. If my wife was here, she would be looking at some of the questions with me. And there's a bit of banter that her and I would have on this that I can't necessarily have by myself because having her gives a little cover. But fuck it. We're going to do it anyway. Let's get racist. So first, though, let's go to the socialist comment. Because this was the comment that pulled me into this. Because this was the first one that I saw when I looked at this, when I first reviewed this. Let's see. I'm trying to find... I want to be able to see the comments. All right. Let's do it with this one. Give me 1 second. Come on. There we go. Usually my wife is doing this. After all, if it's patron appreciation, contributor appreciation, kind of want to see the people who are here, right? Come on, no. That sucks. I haven't got my own notification yet. Come on. All right, that's just awesome. Here we are. Good. All right, good. We have people here. Wesley, what's happening? Wesley, what's going on, man? All right, good. Doors live at the same time. What's happening, Wesley? What's going on, man? All right, so let me. Doors live. I got no notification with this. Yeah, the sad part, I didn't get a notification on my own video. Garden. I didn't get a comment on my own video. I wish Bernie Sanders would come in favor of giving Trump and Clinton the electric chair. Oh, God, he'll never touch that. He'll never touch that. Take a look at this, though. This is the question that got me interested in this debate, or in this town hall. Hell, I'm going to call it a debate. By the way, also, in addition to this, there's questions that are asked of Sanders, there's questions that are asked of Elizabeth Warren. Can't get my words out. But I also have this back and forth between Tulsi Gabbard and one of the Fox News hosts on foreign policy. To me, this is the most interesting aspects of Tulsi Gabbard when she gets into these back and forths, because it clarifies what she believes in. And it also clarifies what the other person believes in. You get to see the logic of what they're saying. Meaning, if we're having a conversation and I say, look, Donald Trump's policy on foreign policy is problematic because if you're trying to topple the government in Venezuela and you're trying to topple the government of Iran, then you can't have a sane foreign policy conversation with North Korea when they're seeing you trying to topple those countries while simultaneously saying you're not trying to topple those countries. There's a problem with that. That creates a situation where they don't trust you. So, this is kind of, one of those issues where I love Tulsi Gabbard bringing this up because she makes that point. Now, the Fox News host may want to slide away from that in the other conversation. I think it was Brett Baer. But this host, again, gets into it with Tulsi Gabbard on the issue of foreign policy. So that's going to be a good one. But let's go to Sanders. Sanders is answering this woman's question on socialism. Listen to the way she frames this particular question. It leaves something to be desired. I'll say it that way.
An objective investigation done by the House.
All right, next question. Samantha Frankel-Popple. Samantha is a sophomore at Harvard studying social studies from California. I have a sneaking suspicion I didn't say your name right. Did I get it right?
It's Frankel-Popel, but it's okay.
It's not even close to what I said. No.
But you got Samantha right?
I did. I got that right.
A
Good.
lifetime of it.
What's your question?
Hi, Senator Sanders. So my father's family left Soviet Russia in 1979, fleeing from some of the very same socialist policies that you seem eager to implement in this country. So my question is, how do you rectify your notion of democratic socialism with the failures of socialism in nearly every country that has tried it?
And do you think that...
Really? When CNN finally comes clean about who these people were, because, look, at the end of the day, somebody is making a choice on what questions get asked. Who asked those questions. The first time around, we knew CNN essentially misrepresented the people who were asking the questions. That's the first point. So we have no idea who these people actually are. This question was somewhat dickish. You can ask him what he means by socialism. Fair enough. But you're acting as if the guy's a communist. And that he's, it's like Bernie Sanders is not advocating communism. He's not even advocating socialism, if we're being honest. And so this question comes across in a particular way. He has to dig himself out of a fair bit of trash before he can even answer the question. And this is what I mean by the way the questions were asked. They were slanted. Let's let him answer it, though. Let Sanders do his thing. Shouldn't be clapping for that question, by the way.
Thank you for asking that question. Is it your assumption that I supported or believe in authoritarian communism that existed in the Soviet Union? I don't. I never have, and I opposed it. I believe in a vigorous democracy. But you have asked me the question about democratic socialism. Fair question. And let me answer it. I happen to believe that in the United States, there is something fundamentally wrong when we have three families owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 160 million people. Something wrong when the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Something very wrong when 49% of all new income today is going to the top 1%. And something is equally wrong when we have a corrupt political system made even worse by this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which allows billionaires to spend unlimited sums of money to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. So answer number one to your question is a radical idea. Maybe not everybody agrees, but I happen to believe we should have a government that represents working families and not just the 1% and powerful corporations. All right, that's point number one. Point number two, what do I mean when I talk about democratic socialism? It certainly is not the authoritarian communism that existed in the Soviet Union and in other communist countries. This is what it means. It means that we cherish, among other things, our Bill of Rights. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt made this point. Chris, I don't know if you remember, you read about it, 1944, in a State of the Union address that never got a whole lot of attention. This is what he said, basically. It was a very profound speech toward the end of World War II. He said, we got a great Constitution, Bill of Rights protects your freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and all that stuff. Great. But you know what it doesn't protect? It doesn't protect and guarantee you economic rights. So, Samantha, let me be very honest with you. I believe that in a democratic, civilized society, health care is a human right. Government should make that happen. I believe that every young person in this country, regardless of his or her income, has the right to get all of the education they need. That's why I have fought hard, with some success, to move toward making public colleges and universities tuition free and very substantially reduce student debt. And I believe that there is something wrong in America today when you got millions of families paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes to put a roof over their heads. And that millions of working class families, young parents, cannot find quality and affordable childcare. So I happen to believe that we have to address the issue of grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality. Very, very rich getting much richer, middle class struggling, 40 million people living in poverty. And what democratic socialism means to me is we expand Medicare, we provide educational opportunity to all Americans, we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. In other words, government serves the needs of all people rather than just wealthy campaign contributors. That's what that means to me.
You were asked earlier on, as a quick follow on this, what do you feel differently about now? I was reviewing what CNN's K-File had come up, taking a look at your evolution in politics.
Cuomo's an asshole. I don't like Chris Cuomo, and because it comes across as it's less about questions that the American public needs to know and that's informative, and more about how can we get you on something. I don't know if they did this to the other candidates, but it seemed particularly pernicious with Bernie Sanders. Before we get to that point, 40 million Americans living in poverty. Understand what that means. What does it cost for 40 million Americans to live in poverty? Answer the question. What does it cost? Like, what does it cost from the standpoint of crime? What does it cost from the standpoint of those people dying because they can't necessarily get health care? I guess you could say, hey, there are more funeral proceedings, which helps the economy from the standpoint of undertakers, but is that really what you're trying to want to accomplish? There's a cost to that. This idea of 40 million people living in poverty, there is a cost to 40 million people in this country living in poverty. I mean, think of drug use. Think of crime. Think of healthcare that's not necessarily getting attended to, meaning the healthcare gets worse when it finally presents with illness. And yeah, we all pay for that. The society pays for that. The guy who hits you over the head because the guy's trying to get nickels out of your pocket, we all pay for that. So you want to pay for it and making sure that there's services, making sure those things are available to the people at the bottom of the ladder. So they're not at the bottom of the ladder, that your country has a floor with regards to the people who are living in this country. It costs. You can make a right-wing argument about dealing with the costs on the front end as opposed to dealing with those costs on the back end. I just want to make that point very clear. When we talk about, oh, how much is it going to cost, Sanders, to make sure people have a job if they want a job, people get health care, or people can get education to the degree that they want their education, how much is it going to cost? Which goes again to the point that it costs on the other end of that also by not having those things. Let's hear Cuomo, because he's going to now turn this into something else. Bernie Sanders answered this woman question. This is what I believe democratic socialism is. Every time Sanders has been asked that question, he has given the exact same answer. This is what democratic socialism is. He hasn't tried to push for communism. He hasn't tried to push to take over the railways and all this other stuff. That's not what Bernie Sanders is pushing. I just want to nail this home. Like, this is what he has always said. He hasn't changed on this. Now they're going to go back and find something that he may have said at some point 40 years ago. Let's hear Cuomo pick this and go into some weird place with it.
Politics. You used to argue that you should have government control of the means of capitalism, energy companies, factories,
when did I say
banks.
that?
In the 70s.
Okay, right.
No,
You heard him, right? Oh. Because he knows what this is. Oh. This is a snow job. This is a snow job. You're trying to snuff me out. That's what you're doing. This is a got you. Hey, back in the 70s, Bernie, 50 years ago, you were pushing for what? What were you pushing for when you were a wild-eyed hippie in high school and college? That's what we're talking
But
about.
what did you say in the 70s?
Hold on. I got Googled.
That's right. All right.
What I'm saying is that you've changed.
Well, wait a minute. First thought, he hears me criticizing media all the time, and he gets nervous about it, right?
One of many things that makes me nervous.
All right. I was the mayor of a city for 8 years. Did I nationalize any of the industry in the city of Burlington, Vermont? I don't think so. Congressman for 16 years. Look, I said what I said, and that is I want to live in a nation in which all people in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world can have a decent standard of living. I'm not talking about everybody owning a big fancy house or a Cadillac or anything like that, but I think we can do what other nations in the world are already doing. I mean, the ideas that I'm advocating for you tonight, they're not so radical. Healthcare, healthcare as a right exists in virtually every other major country on earth. How much, anyone here know how much it costs to go to college in Germany? Anyone know? Yeah, it's free. I once was giving a speech, Chris, and I said that in Finland, college is free, and some guy jumped up and said, I'm from Finland, you're wrong, it's not free. I said, oh? He said, yeah, they pay us to go to college. All right, so these ideas about
Understand why. Like, the weirdest fucking thing with Americans is their point of view on this stuff. Understand why your society pays, or their society will pay people to go to school. It is a benefit to your society. Every person that leaves school is a benefit to the society itself. Those people are going to create more jobs. Not just create more jobs, those people are going to be able to work in those more technical industries. That is what you want. Your society wants a cacophony of people who are burgeoning at the seams in order to get into schools and get educations. Why wouldn't you want that? Why would you want a disincentive for people to be able to get an education in this country? Why would you want that to be burdensome? It's an opposite effect. It's such a bizarre thing. So yeah, if you're in one of those European countries that's sane, they say, yeah, it benefits us as a nation to have as many people as possible to be able to go to our schools. Do you realize if you're an American and you can get over to Germany, they would give you free passage into the school itself, meaning you can take this school is free, even for foreigners. Oh, it's aggravating. I don't understand it. Zane Jamerson, he should have pressed her on what policies? Yeah, you're right. Because she's framing this as if he's some kind of Soviet, or you're trying to turn this country into Berlin or something, like the Soviet side of Berlin or the West Germany. Look, yeah, it's an unfair question. She framed it in a way that was completely unfair. And whatever way she was going to ask the question, Bernie Sanders was going to say, thank you for the question. And that's what he did. Thank you for the question. And he goes in to answer that nonsense question that was essentially framed in a way that was biased in the way that the question was asked. And then he goes on to explain what he means. This is what democratic socialism means to me. Clear, unequivocal, further than any of the other candidates will go. And this is what, I believe these things are rights. Society gives rights. These things are rights. I think these things are what people in our society should strive to accomplish for each other as a floor to the society. And Cuomo goes and says, hey, didn't you used to, when you were in the 70s, when you were in your 20s, wanted to nationalize industries? I'm just saying, this looks horrible to me. This looks horrible. The way it looks like a snow job. Looks like they were just out to get him. Let's see. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, let's go to the next one. So, national markets. Yeah, I did that one. You know what? On this one, Sanders does something that's actually pretty awesome. He gets into a conversation about Israel. And in this conversation, he makes the point that it's a racist government. And people are like, oh, are you trying to say that the country that calls itself a Jewish state is a racist government? Yes, it's a racist government by definition. He had the balls to say it. Go star Sanders on this one. Vote for felons. I want to show this one. Listen to how hyperbolic this is. And not just hyperbolic. This question is designed in order to elicit a response, in order to attack him with a headline, which is what CNN did. CNN made a headline off of this. Listen to, well, two things. Let's hear his Medicare for All question, and then let's go into the felons question.
Sanders of Vermont leading the field among. Thank you. All right, how about our first question? We ready?
Why not?
Why not, indeed?
What else do we have to do?
That's it. We'll talk later.
All right.
Nick Troisi, okay? He's from Massachusetts. He's a junior at the University of Massachusetts, Lowell. What do you got?
Hi, Senator.
Hey, Nick.
How are you?
Good.
You recently reintroduced your Medicare.
I hate to point this out, but the senator of your state sucks. She's somewhat of a political weather veil. There are times where I agree with some of the policies that she wants to push, but I think you need to pressure her to be a little bit more solid in her positions. That's all I'm saying. Elizabeth Warren, she should have supported Bernie Sanders in 2016 when she was running. I don't know where you were at the time, but you should have been doing a little bit more to get your congressman to support this guy. He would be president right now. I'm not blaming you for this, but you are from Massachusetts, and so I have a little bit of rage going on with that. Nevertheless, let's hear this question.
For All legislation package, co-sponsored with several other senators, many of which are running.
Thank you.
All right, how about our first question? We ready?
Why not?
Why not, indeed?
What else do we have to do?
That's it. We'll talk later.
All right.
Nick Troisi, okay? He's from Massachusetts. He's a junior at the University of Massachusetts, Lowell. What do you got?
Hi, Senator.
Hey, Nick.
How are you?
Good.
You recently reintroduced your Medicare for All legislation package, co-sponsored with several other senators, many of which are running alongside you for President of the United States. In this legislation, you call for an end to private health insurance companies. How do you plan to phase out these private insurance companies for your new Medicare for All insurance?
Good. Excellent question on an issue that millions of Americans stay up night worrying about. All right, let's start off with talking about the current system. We have a dysfunctional healthcare system in which 30 million Americans have no health insurance at all. Even more are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Our healthcare outcomes in terms of infant mortality, life expectancy, not particularly good. And for all of that, we end up spending twice as much per capita as any other major country on earth. So let me be as clear as I can be. The function of the current healthcare system is not to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. The function of the current system is to make billions of dollars in profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. That is the function of the current system. And what I believe is that over a 4-year period, which is what my legislation is about, we're going to transform our healthcare system. So first year, we go from 65 years of age for eligibility to Medicare down to 55, and we cover all of the kids in the country. And by the way, despite what President Trump says, we expand benefits for senior citizens. Medicare is a very good program, but it doesn't cover dental care, it doesn't cover eyeglasses, and it doesn't cover hearing aids. And we do that. Bottom line is, I happen to believe from the bottom of my heart, and I believe this for my whole adult life, that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And the best way to go forward, in my view, is through a Medicare for All single-payer program.
All right, next question. Ann
Excellent answer. Like, I love his answers on this. Clear, straightforward, to the point, no hedge, doesn't cover. I don't mean Medicare for some, I mean Medicare for all. And yes, I want to phase out all the healthcare insurance programs. Republicans hit him on this, saying, oh, look at those Bernie's trying to get rid of healthcare. Bernie says, damn right, I want to get rid of those healthcare insurance plans. Why would you need them? They become irrelevant. Medicare for all expands the coverage of the healthcare plans. I have yet to meet somebody who loves their healthcare plan. Full stop. If they do like it, it's in relation to other people who dislike theirs, not necessarily because they love it. It's a leech within the system itself. It adds billions of dollars in regards to what we are paying over top of what's needed to be paid. They've turned this into a profit-making enterprise. Here's the thing, and here's the catch. Any aspect of capitalism, the goal of it is to maximize profit, not to provide whatever the service is. The service is a byproduct. It's almost an afterthought. Yes, they may want to get the service right that they're providing, but the point of it is to maximize profit. Healthcare is no different. People may think that their doctor's there to make sure they're okay. Yes, to some degree, yes, but the doctor's also there to maximize his profit and to get his cut. Well, the hospitals get their cut. The doctors get their cut. Insurance companies get their cut. Everybody's getting their cut. And what is that doing to the prices? It is pushing them through the roof. Is this really the healthcare we want? Do we really want people getting rich off of cancer and fractures and breaks and AIDS and other diseases that beset the human form? Is this really what we want? My answer to this is no. If you want to ensure that you can provide health care to all of the citizens in the country, the 30 million people that don't have insurance, then you need to do something with the cost of health care. Not have this utopian vision of health care that Obama was putting out, that the insurance companies and the patients and the hospitals will go kumbaya running in the sun. No, not so much. Not so much. So yeah, this spot on. Absolutely spot on. Love Bernie Sanders' answers on this. Let's see, what's the next one? And let me make sure who's here. I want to make sure I engage the audience. Healthcare is a product and government is not allowed to support products. That's nonsense. That is utter nonsense. Let's see. Kamala Harris, damn it. No, I do not want her. No, I don't want Kamala Harris. But that's where the big money is going, by the way. That's where the big money is going. Kamala Harris. Not so much Joe Biden. Joe Biden, in this, I think, believe it or not, I think he's a weak candidate. He has too much time on it. Like, Sanders has been consistent the entire time he's been Congress. Joe Biden has supported racist policies, has backed or has gotten the support from just outright, straightforward, unequivocal racists in order to back some of the policies this morning, talking about the busing. He, in one point, supported allowing states to make a determination about abortion. I mean, this is some gross stuff. I don't know how you get through a Democratic primary with a record like this. Not to mention attacking kids, that are having a hard way to go, attacking these kids almost as if these guys are crybabies, not necessarily recognizing the pain that these kids are actually feeling, talking about cutting Medicare, Social Security, that Paul Ryan was right. How do you get through a primary? How do you get through a primary like this? So I don't necessarily think Joe Biden is the strongest person, the one to be concerned about. It's going to be somebody else. I don't know who that somebody else is yet. We'll see. But I don't think it's going to be Biden. Pop reality. The fact that she's in Harvard doesn't know the difference between Soviet Russia and Nordic-style socialism, an example of our educational system. No. You're being far too kind, sir. No, I think you need to be far more cynical in this approach. It's not that she didn't know it. It's not that she's stupid. Stupid, in this case, is somewhat of a hedge for her just being utterly corrupt and her asking this question and just being completely disingenuous. She's being entirely, completely disingenuous. It's not that she doesn't know. She's not stupid. She's, corrupt. There's a difference in those things. I don't necessarily know which one is worse. Let's go to the next one. Reparations. All right, so, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that reparations one, but wait a minute.
Carlstein, junior at Harvard, studying mathematics from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and
Senator Sanders, you have said that you believe that people with felony records should...
Oh, here we are. Here we are. All right, so this is the felony records one. Listen to this question. And listen to a question that's a technical point that can be argued, and how the reality of the argument goes away because it gets so hyperbolic. Like, we're not having a conversation on policy anymore. We're having this conversation on somebody being hyperbolic in a conversation about policy. The blowing it up starts to suck all of the air out of the room. So the reality of what you're debating and the reasons why you're debating it leave to the point, to the hyperbolic nature of the conversation. You'll see what I mean. Listen to the way this goes. This goes south real fast.
Be allowed to vote while in prison. Does this mean that you would support enfranchising people like the Boston Marathon bomber, a convicted terrorist and murderer? Do you think that those convicted of sexual assault should have the opportunity to vote for politicians who could have a direct impact on women's rights?
What are you terrified of? Like, when people ask this question, how many felons do you have in your state? Is your state so inundated with felons and crooks? Is your district so inundated with felons and crooks and perverts of all sorts that this is somewhat of a concern? That these perverts and terrorists and crooks are going to overwhelm the voters, the good Christian people in your particular district, that they're going to overwhelm them and somehow change the electoral system? Is that what you're concerned with? Why is this an issue? Why is this bother you so? I don't quite get it. And then to ask the question, Sanders, you're on board for voting for felons. You want felons to be able to vote. Are you okay with rapists voting Sanders? What about terrorists? You're okay with terrorists, rapists voting Bernie Sanders? Thank you, Bernie. Thank you for the question. I mean, come on! The Boston bomber? Is that where we're going with this? Is it possible that he has a reason for this? And this hyperbolic example of the Boston bomber, meaning there's only one Boston bomber. It's one man, one vote. How many votes do you think the Boston bomber is going to get? How many Boston bombers do you think there are that they're going to start pushing policy agendas from prison? For fuck's sake. Let's let him answer. No, I don't like this question.
Okay, thank you for the question. And,
don't thank her.
And let me just say this. What our campaign is about, and what I believe, is creating a vibrant democracy. Today, as you may know, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. I want to see us have one of the highest voter turnouts. And by the way, what we're seeing is more young people getting involved in the political process, but not enough. And in my view, if young people voted at the same percentage that older people voted in this country, we would transform this nation. But to get to your point, we live in a moment where cowardly Republican governors are trying to suppress the vote. And in fact, right here, as you may know, in New Hampshire, the legislature and the governor are working hard to make it more difficult for young people to vote. And to me, that is an incredibly undemocratic, un-American process. And I say to those people, by the way, if you don't have the guts to participate in free and fair elections, you should get another job and get out of politics. All right? So we got to...
What is going on with this head nod? I think her issue here is, this is a look of, ask you about rapists, Sanders. Ask you about terrorists, rapists. Are you on board for terrorist rapers voting in ways that may adversely affect my feminine rights? Actually about rapists, not about goddamn kids, Sanders. I think that's what that look is. That look is really creepy. Let's hear it out, because Cuomo is going to reposition this back to, are you really okay with the Boston bomber voting? As if nothing that he said mattered. Understand why he's doing this. You have a situation all across the United States where people go to prison, serve their time, they get out, and still don't get their rights restored. Do you realize that Florida voted to restore the rights of I think it was over 1 million people who had gone to prison and who had their rights permanently revoked from voting. They served their time, they did their due, and still couldn't necessarily participate in the voting in this country. That's astonishing. We do have some of the lowest voting in this country. If a person served their time, should they be able to vote? Yes or no? The Republicans have gone and made their, you can say, their business preventing these people to vote, because these people, for the most part, don't vote in favor of Republicans. So it's their way of trying to, you can say, stop the tide of sorts. And this was one of the angles that they were using to stop the tide. Bernie Sanders' point is, look, you're still part of this country. You're still an American. You should be able to vote. And especially if Republicans are going to use a tactic like this in order to tamp down the number of people that are going to vote that are not in their interest. He's only doing this as a response to the voter suppression that the Republicans have been doing surrounding this issue of people being able to vote. Terry McAuliffe, the governor here in Virginia, he just restored the rights of all these people who, again, had served their time, but Republican governors prevented from getting their voting rights back. This is all across the United States. What about that? What about those people? What about the millions of people who are in a position that they're not allowed to get their voting rights back because the political system doesn't want them to get their voting right back because it's disadvantageous to one of the political parties? What about those people? Do those people's rights count? For instance of, I served my time, should I not get my voting rights back? It goes beyond just the Boston bomber voting. And again, I asked the question, how many people, how fucked up is your district where you have all of these rapists and murderers and perverts who have such political clout in the voting system? I mean, come on. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Let's keep going.
So here is, and to answer your question, as it happens in my own state of Vermont, from the very first days of our state's history, what our Constitution says is that everybody can vote. That is true. So people in jail can vote. Now, here is my view. If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. They may be in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives. That's what happens when you commit a serious crime. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people. Because once you start chipping away and you say, well, that guy committed a terrible crime, not going to let him vote. Or that person did that, not going to let that person vote. You're running down a slippery slope. So I believe that people who commit crimes, they pay the price. When they get out of jail, I believe they certainly should have the right to vote. But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy.
Applause for the answer. My follow question goes to this being like you're writing an opposition ad against you by saying you think the Boston Marathon bomber should vote not after he pays his debt to society, but while he's in jail. You sure about that?
Well, Chris, I think
Is he sure about that? He just gave you his answer. Of course he's sure about that. And why wouldn't he be sure about that? What? You said nothing that changes anything that he said. You just asked him if he was sure about it. That's not a critique. That's not anything. You mean the Boston bomber should vote? Are you sure about that? That's my op-ed, buddy. Are you sure about that? That's not an op-ed. That's nothing. That's nothing at all. Yes, he's sure about that. He gave you his opinion. He gave you his perspective. He believes that they should be able to vote because it's a slippery slope. And you can look at what the outcomes of what is taking place across the United States. They are using this to suppress the vote. These people who have served their time are not getting their rights to vote back. But even if you go into the people in prison, what do you think is going to take place? Like, how much policy do you believe is out there that are supporting people getting less sentences, where the people who are in jail are joining forces with the people who are out of jail? Like, I don't know this place to which you live that is so horrendous that you believe these rapists and drug dealers and perverts are somehow going to come out of jail based on some kind of voting thing. I mean, come on. And are you serious? Yes, he's serious. He's sure.
I have written many 30-second opposition ads throughout my life. This will be just another one. But I do believe, look, this is what I believe. Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe that every single American 18 years of age or older who's an American citizen has the right to vote? Once you start chipping away at that, believe me, that's what our Republican governors all over this country are doing. They come up with all kinds of excuses why people of color, young people, poor people can't vote. And I will do everything I can to resist it. This is a democracy. We've got to expand that democracy. And I believe every single person does have the right to vote.
All right. Kenya Hunter. Kenya's a graduate student at Emerson College. She's studying journalism. She's
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right. Kind of wanted my wife here for this one. Like, I have a tendency to say shit sometimes that goes a little bit far. Her and I joke mercilessly about all sorts of stuff. And so there's... Fuck it, let's just do it. Let's do it. Reparations. Let's hear it.
here from Georgia. Kenya, your question.
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Hey, Kenya.
Your views on reparations have sort of surprised me, especially since one of the messages of your campaign is closing the wealth gap. For Black people, the wealth gap stems from the aftermath of slavery, like legal segregation and discrimination. If reparations are not part of your plan to end the wealth gap for Black people, what is?
Good question. And let me say this. What I have said is there is legislation.
I don't know if I would have used a do-rag to ask Bernie Sanders a question. Just saying. It's a choice, you know, like any other fashion choice, but maybe I'm being picky. Let's hear Sanders' answer. Like, here's the thing, though. Sanders' answer is going to be the same answer, for the most part, as the other people who are running. None of them are going to support this. She might have said, yeah, it's maybe surprising. I don't know why it's surprising. You're a journalism student. How can you not know? And not just a journalism student. You're Black. Now, understand what I mean by this. There's certain things, when you look at the world, that you have a certain disposition of, and maybe my disposition is taken just by the slice of time to which I exist in. There is weirdness around the issue of race. That's a no shit, Sherlock. I know that. But that applies to the political space. Meaning that very specific thing of reparations hits a nerve. I am telling you, I've had conversations on this stuff. It hits a nerve with a certain element of the population that are lighter skinned brethren. Because it deals with this issue of slavery and everything else. Now, Sanders is dealing with these issues of reparations in a different way. No, it's not reparations. But if you're asking if the people at the lower end of the income ladder are going to benefit magnificently off of what he is putting through, then the answer is yes. And if you're also asking me, does this get you further along than what you would get had you, let's say, a Kamala Harris or you some other corporate Democrat? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Do I believe in reparations? Yes. Do I believe that there should be race-specific reparations as payment or repayment for what took place back in the past? Yes. If other people's money can float through time, meaning if this guy can have $1 billion and he can pass it down to his kid and his kid and his kid and his kid, then why can't money that was earned by those African Americans that was forced to work on those plantations also get the same viewpoint? It's a position argument. If you want to make a case, I guess my point is I agree with all of that. But then you get to the secondary argument of, can you get it over the finish line? And if the person is supporting that, I looked at the polling on that. The poll, like, it is hard to get across how dramatically unpopular that plan is. So to me, I look at it as, yes, I support it, but I have a reality that I need to live in, and that reality says that if my candidate, the horse that I'm choosing, selects that as a policy position, that it was very likely he would lose to Donald Trump, a situation that I don't think would be the case if he didn't take it on. And I also, again, look at it as what he wants to do gets people at the bottom of the income distribution ladder further along. No, it's not just African Americans, and yes, it is spread out, but it affects the lower end of the economic scale, and more so, I guess I could say in spades, in comparison to the many other candidates. So I look at this as, yeah, this is real gains. This is real gains. No, it's not reparations. But that's not what she wants to hear. She wants to hear reparations. That's not reparations. Oh, God, man. It's like this question. Like Elizabeth Warren comes out and says, yes, she agrees with it because she's pandering. But if you ask her what she's pushing for, she has no fucking clue. She's not pushing for reparations at all, any more than any of the other candidates are pushing for reparations. Because again, they know they can't get it over the finish line. They may use those words. They may, change the name of what reparations is and what it does, but they're not going to give you what you're asking for in this very specific instance. Just saying. And I know people disagree with me on that front. Fair enough. I've let more than one person take the piss out of me. But, Pop reality. Bernie needs to shed his naivety of mainstream media. Pop, I don't know if Bernie's saying this as a choice. Like, think of it from his perspective for the moment. Say for the moment, the Democratic Party says, all right, we're going to have these debates with CNN. Great. What is he going to say? No? Is he really going to say no? The other Democratic candidate says, yes, I'm going to show up on CNN. Does Bernie Sanders really say no to coming on CNN for that debate? He's stuck. You're stuck by the politics of it. You can't get out of it. At least that's my thought. I don't think you have a choice. I don't think you have a choice. Slow news day. I just want my freedom dividend and my pony wearing a jetpack. Pony wearing a jetpack. Jamarl still not giving up on the two-party system. What the fuck, Jamarl? Bernie's answer means that he is chasing Trump voters, and that's the same as... No. That is not the same. Let's talk about that. I don't agree with that at all. If I am running for office, and I come out and say, look, this is my economic platform. I want, $15 minimum wage. I want, let's say, worker co-ops. I want to make sure everybody has a job that wants a job. I want environmental policy, meaning we need to take care of our environment, a sustainable economic system. If I say that, that's who I am. This is what I am. Faults and all. This is what I push for. This is my agenda. And I go to Ohio. And I go to some of these other places where the economy has not done well for them, where the plants have been closing, where they've been shipping these jobs off seas. And I go to them and I say, look, your economy, your world doesn't have to be this way. There's a new way. There's something else that we can do in regards to how we monitor and maintain our economic system. This is the richest country on the planet. You should not be in a situation where you're struggling to get health care, or you're struggling to decide whether you're going to eat or whether you're going to buy this medication. You can have a different world. And if I take that message to a Trump voter, I haven't changed one iota. I have not changed one iota. Nothing in what my message has changed. This message is the same message that I have for the left and for the right. Because his argument is, this is a message that just resonates with America itself. That the people themselves haven't necessarily moved politically in this kind of wild ways. They are what they were, and especially in times of struggle, they're okay with this idea of, you can say, government intervention and to assisting them in this stuff. You can say that he's chasing Trump voters, but he's not chasing Trump voters in the sense of changing who he is. It's more so of he's giving them his message. This is what I believe in. What of this do you agree with me on, and do you think I'm being earnest with you? There's a difference in those things with Hillary Clinton moving to the right to get a Trump voter as opposed to Bernie Sanders just standing where he is. There's a difference in those things. Let's see. I hope you guys are fighting. Trudy was talking to Jamarl. All right, Trudy, what you said, Trudy? Where are you? Bottom-up economics works. Yes, bottom-up economics does work. They won't pass single payer, but they're going to give reparations. Pandering. all these Harvard preps from Harvard, a centrist society. They are, right? It's like the Clinton camp was the only people they were. I mean, they seemed pissed off. It's like, I'm gonna show that fucking socialist. I'm gonna get his ass. I had a family that was leaving Soviet Russia, eating buns and potatoes and puppies. We ate our puppy to live on, Sanders. And you're trying to bring that shit here into this country. Like, this is the indignation that she's asking this question, as if she doesn't know the difference between democratic socialist countries like Finland and Scandinavia, and at one point Britain. You know, I just trying to make the point that these countries that were perfectly successful in cohesive societies, capitalist societies. I had a conversation for 4 or 5 hours with a guy from Denmark explaining how awesome capitalism is in Denmark. You know, Republicans will look at Denmark and go like, what the fuck? But they have high taxes, but they also are perfectly okay with this idea of capitalist expansion. They're full-on capitalists. They just have a different model of running it. They believe that you got to get back to the employees if you want to have a stable, sane society. Yeah, but these guys are like, you know, the prep school centrist bunch or something. All right, so I want to go to Elizabeth Warren. Let's go to Elizabeth Warren. So let's see, where is she? All right, tech companies. I thought this was an awesome answer. Now, Elizabeth Warren is getting questions like this. Bernie Sanders is getting questions like you saw prior. They did ask Bernie Sanders a really good question about impeachment, and he knocks it out of the park, essentially saying, look, if we continuously focus on Trump, we're going to lose. Meaning, if we're going to spend the next year and a half in talking about things that doesn't necessarily deal with the issues that people care about, that are affecting them, we are going to lose. This plays into his hand. How does it play into his hand? You had an investigation that went on for 3 years based on a conspiracy theory that went on for 3 years. And that conspiracy theory was shot in the face at high noon on national television with every social media watching it. It lay dead. And you have people who are reviving that dead body in order to try to get a little bit more life out of it. The question becomes, why are you using that as a political tactic as opposed to the problems, the defects that are extraordinarily apparent with regards to Trump? He said he was going to do X and he didn't do those things. And maybe somebody who actually really wants to do those things can take votes away from him, which it's shown that he can. It's shown that he can. So yeah, so that's that other part. And I'm going to save that for a separate video because I think that's an awesome video. Just in and of itself, it's a short clip. But I think it is foolhardy for many of the Democrats to go on this pace of trying impeachment of Donald Trump. It's like your conspiracy theory was shot dead. How are you still trying to get more life out of it? It's very bizarre. Let's see. Prisoners should be allowed. Yes. Who would be better to address prison reform than those who have experienced the problems personally? You're telling me if 100% of prisoners, I think they should be able to vote. Like, I agree with Sanders' position on this. What am I scared of? Like, am I honestly scared of prisoners, like, somehow voting themselves out of prison? Like, this is nonsense. There's one Boston bomber. You may have a few other people who are pretty horrible characters, but what do you think is going to take place politically that is somehow going to dramatically disadvantage you? I just don't understand that. Yeah, prisoners should be able to vote. And yeah, prison reform may be something that prisoners and the public actually agree on. I see nothing wrong with this issue, even though CNN has been playing it up like Bernie Sanders wants the Boston bomber to be able to vote. That's literally the headline on CNN. Reparations. If investments in socioeconomically disenfranchised communities benefit American descendants of slaves disproportionately, does that count as reparations? I only ask because it seems way easier to determine socioeconomic level than determine whether someone is an American descendant of a slave. God, I love that. Whoever wrote that, you are fucking awesome. Because you're kind of making my point. And so yes, I'm going to think you're fucking awesome. It is true that is somewhat a self-interested point of view, but I think it's right. Say for the moment that I can't get a policy over the finish line. Say for the moment that I have a large share of the population, 13% of the population, that is of African American descent. And that 13% of the population, of that, a large share of them, let's say, are economically disadvantaged. And that economically disenfranchisement came back from the origins of this country. You can call it the original sin. I think the original sin was the Native Americans, but whatever. You get my point. Not to mention the years after of disenfranchisement of those communities. So fair enough. But if I can't get that over the finish line, then nothing happens on that end. Like, if the candidate loses because the candidate has to support a policy that is inherently inflammatory and can't get over the finish line in regards to policy positions, then understand that you shouldn't support a policy. You support a policy whether you believe in a policy, not necessarily whether or not you can get over the finish line and pass. That is true from this kind of just, I'm standing here thinking about what I support and what I don't support. The moment that I take this into a political arena, I want it passed. I want to be able to get something passed. I can feel all sorts of ways about all sorts of things for all sorts of, days. But do I want to get something passed, not just feel some kind of way about it? So if you ask me, do I believe that they should get reparations? Yes. But then you ask the secondary question of, look, this candidate is trying to run and trying to get passed. But if he supports this, his chances of losing increases. What is the candidate trying to support outside of this? And then that's when you get into, he's trying to benefit, like, his policies are going to be a dramatic benefit to the people at the bottom end of that economic scale, the people who are looking for the reparations in the first place. Yes, it supports people across the economic spectrum, white, black, gay, straight, whatever. But the people who are more disadvantaged may actually be people of color and descendants of slaves. And those people would benefit more so from that policy as opposed to that candidate not being able to get elected. Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be exactly reparations if it alleviates some of the pain at the bottom end of the economic scale. And I don't necessarily need it to be specific to blacks in order for me to want to get that passed. I hope that makes sense. I understand people completely disagree with me on that topic, but I think I'm right on this. I think I'm solid. If the Democrats have been screaming Trump is the problem for years and they boot Trump, then they have to produce the same for Pence. Well, they can't produce that for Pence. Like, how do you produce that for Pence? I mean, Pence hasn't done anything, and if I'm being honest, Pence is going to be a more competent person in that White House. This is kind of my point. Pence is not the person that they want to run the campaign against in 2020. Between the two, Donald Trump is a far weaker opponent. This idea that they're trying to take Donald Trump out of office is an utter folly. You're going to rip the country. There's going to be 30 or 40% of the country that is going to look at everything that you're doing as being politically motivated. You're not going to get their votes. Progressives, you're not going to get their votes. Many of them, you're not going to get their votes after doing this. I'm just saying, this is a political folly. This is foolhardy. This is foolhardy. All right. Wow, this has gone an hour. All right, so I'm going to go check on Ms. Thomas, and I'm going to see how she's doing, and if the nausea medication has helped, then she may be up for a show at some point. If not today, maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I need to make sure she's okay. So I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. You may see me later today for a few other shows, because there's like 3 or 4 other shows that I definitely want to get to. But I need to check on her. And if she's doing okay, I might try to pull her onto a show. See you guys in a few. Thanks, so.